Okay, our last presenters tonight, the little girl and her biscuits.
Hello, I'm Sophia Franz.
I'm Sophia Morano.
And I'm Micah Akers.
This is our story.
And let us story begin.
Oh, she really does it. Once upon a time, there was a young girl baking biscuits in her humble abode. However, these biscuits were no ordinary biscuits, as these biscuits contained the young girl's Lilith Malvolia's medication. These very medications were used to treat her homicidal rampages and just keep her relatively calm. Soon enough, the biscuits were ready to be baked, and Lilith placed them into the oven. While the biscuits were baking, she decided that she would give her grandmother a quick visit, and after a while grabbed her red coat and was on her way to Granny's.
Hiding in the shadows of Lilith's house was a black-haired wolf, who, smelling the biscuits from far away, decided to lay waiting for Lilith to leave her biscuits unguarded. The wolf was part of a large pack who were recently forced to become vegetarians due to hunters in the area killing all the deer and other sources of meat. As the wolves had a particular distaste for grass, they settled on stealing biscuits. To keep Lilith's door open, the wolf, Meredith, stuck a dead tree branch in between the door and the wall. As soon as Lilith disappeared down the paved path to Granny's, Meredith snuck inside.
Smelling the lovely biscuits made Meredith's stomach rumble. As he snuck in, he grabbed a mitten and pulled out the golden biscuits, placing them into a bag just big enough to fit them all. He put the mitten back down, mind you, not where he found it, and left quickly, leaving the door slightly open.
After about 20 minutes, Lilith comes skipping down the pathway, a bit overeager to take the medication and her biscuits. She had started feeling a bit homicidal when her grandmother had started disagreeing with her opinion on national politics and immigration. But still, she continued on. On the path, she bumped into Meredith, thinking nothing of it, only noticing a lingering smell. Running into the kitchen, the warming smell of biscuits was there, but it was weaker than usual. She stood confused and opened the oven only to find no biscuits, and in a fit of rage, plotted to hunt down and kill the thief.
Livid, she thought about who could have stolen her biscuits. Lilith lived alone, so any roommate, parent, or sibling was out of the question. She didn't know all that many people from the town, and none of them had been over to her house anyways. Lilith thought back to the events earlier that day, remembering bumping into someone that had smelled familiar. Lilith thought more, and she recalled that that figure had been walking away from her house as she'd been walking towards it. Furthermore, Lilith now recognized that smell as the smell of her very own biscuits. Putting two and two together, Lilith knew that the thief must have been the mysterious figure on the path.
With the knowledge that the thief had been on the path, Lilith headed out, prepared with a large Swiss Army knife. In her incredible state of rage, she was able to identify which way the thief had gone by the lingering smell of biscuits. She walked down a forest path and into the thick shrubbery. Finally, she reached a large clearing where she saw wolves come out from the shadows. Quickly, she hid behind a bush, being careful not to be seen. The wolves gathered around a tall and dark wolf carrying a large sack, waiting for him to unveil what was inside.
Now Lilith couldn't see the wolves, but she could certainly smell them. She heard a rustle of canvas, likely the bag, and the delicious scent of biscuits wafted out into the air. Her mind began to race, now that she knew who the thieves were, and that she could smell the biscuits that were practically in front of her.
Meredith had already opened the sack and began to divvy out the biscuits to the rest of the pack. The hungry vegetarians eagerly grabbed at their biscuits and ate them quickly. While the wolves were whining for more, Meredith heard a rustle coming from a nearby bush, but thought nothing of it. However, Meredith heard a second rustle coming from the same exact spot and went over to investigate.
Hearing the footsteps approach the bush, Lilith clutched her army knife in hand, ready to surprise the wolf at any moment. As she saw the wolf's head peek over the bush, she jumped up, wielding her knife, threateningly pointing the knife at Meredith, now who she identified as the person who dispersed the biscuits and stole her biscuits, and lunged towards Meredith, yelling,
"Give me back
Luckily, Meredith was able to dodge her attack, but Lilith was not one to give up and continued attacking Meredith, and Meredith continued to evade and dodge her attacks.
Eventually, Meredith held up his hands, signaling surrender. Lilith stopped still, halting her advances. Meredith motioned for the rest of the pack to come in closer and began to speak to Lilith.
First and foremost, we all apologize for stealing your biscuits. However, the attack on our pack was unprecedented, particularly because you have no knowledge of our situation. You see, we are vegetarians. Local hunters have killed off all our sources of meat, leaving nothing but the measly greens on the ground for us, Meredith explained.
So you're telling me you stole my biscuits because you're all vegetarian Liliths? Lilith said. That's the dumbest excuse I've ever heard.
Just please let me finish, Meredith said, getting exasperated with the tiny little girl and her biscuits. As I was saying, the hunters have only left the edible plants in the area. Earlier today, I went out scavenging for food and I smelled your biscuits. They smelled so good that I followed the scent right back into your house. In a moment of impulsiveness, I grabbed the biscuits, took them back here, and shared them with the rest of the pack. Now, you see, everyone has a reason for what they do.
Fair enough, but you don't know my story either. I occasionally bake my medication into those very biscuits. When I don't eat them, my homicidal tendencies return and I pretty much go psycho. Seeing as you stole and ate my biscuits, I did not get my medication this morning and I am running on an extremely short fuse, Lilith explained.
Understanding Lilith's situation, the wolves gathered. One whispering into Meredith's ear, and Meredith looked like he was in deep contemplation and started walking towards Lilith once again.
How about we make a deal, Meredith said. We pick up your medication, shop for ingredients, and even help you make your biscuits in exchange for biscuits without medication in them, Meredith suggested. Lilith stood still, confused. After a moment of intense contemplation, she decided that she had nothing to lose.
You know what? Fine, I'll do it, Lilith said. Lilith and Meredith shook hands, signaling that the deal was official. The wolves cheered, happy that they'd finally have a tasty food source, and Lilith smiled, glad to have someone there to help her out every day.
Lilith helped the wolves and the wolves helped Lilith until the deer repopulated and they no longer required Lilith's help. But still, Meredith came around and helped Lilith bake her biscuits. All was well.
Until somebody steals Lilith's biscuits. Thank you.